True attraction starts from within. Before you can draw the right people into your life romantically, socially, or professionally, you must first recognize your own value. Self-worth isn't just confidence. It's the foundation for how you show up in the world. Here's how you unlock your inner power and become magnetic to others. Here's the expanded version of Key Point 1, written in a seamless, conversational tone as though delivered in a speech, aligned with the overarching theme of self, worth, and attraction. Let's start right at the root of it all, your personal growth. Because if you want to talk about attraction, real attraction, the kind that sticks, the kind that transforms not just your relationships, but the quality of your entire life, it begins with who you're becoming. Too many people focus on how to get others to like them, how to say the right thing, look the right way, or play some perfect version of themselves. But here's the thing. Attraction isn't about impressing someone. It's about aligning with the best version of yourself and letting that asterisk be what others respond to. Now, when I say prioritize personal growth, I'm not just talking about picking up a self-help book once in a while or listening to a motivational podcast during your commute. I'm talking about making a conscious, daily commitment to becoming more self-aware, more resilient, more capable, and more aligned with your values. And this isn't about being better for anyone else. This is about growing because you you deserve more. And because you're done settling for less. One of the most attractive things about a person is direction. When you're moving towards something meaningful, when you have goals, passions, and a fire in your belly, you carry yourself differently. You don't wait for validation. You don't shrink in the presence of others. You bring a presence that naturally makes people want to understand you, support you, maybe even follow you. People can feel it when you have momentum. It's magnetic. And guess what? Growth doesn't need to be some grand reinvention. It starts small. It starts with deciding that you're not going to go through your days on autopilot, that you're going to reflect, that you're going to ask hard questions like, what's really holding me back right now? What am I avoiding? Who am I becoming? Based on the decisions I'm making every day. Sometimes prioritizing growth means choosing discomfort over distraction. Instead of numbing out with your phone or blaming circumstances, you choose to sit with the tension and figure out what it's trying to teach you. Growth lives in that discomfort. It shows up in those moments when you say no to what's easy and yes to what's necessary. And when you do that consistently, when you start stacking small wins, you build something critical to attraction, confidence. Not the fake kind, not the puffed up look at me kind, but the kind that comes from knowing you're showing up for yourself. You're putting in the work, you're evolving, you're building integrity with your own potential, that confidence. That energy, it speaks louder than anything you could post on social media or say in a first date conversation. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. In fact, people are drawn to you because of your growth, not in spite of it. When you own your journey, when you can say, hey, I've made mistakes, I'm still learning, but here's what I'm working on, you become real. And real is rare. Real is irresistible. It's also important to understand that personal growth isn't linear. There are going to be days where it feels like nothing's changing, where you slip back into old habits or doubt yourself. That's part of it. Growth is messy. Progress isn't always visible. But every time you choose to get back up, every time you act on your future instead of reacting from your past, you reinforce your self-worth. And I'll tell you something else people who prioritize their growth don't chase, they attract. They don't beg for attention or validation. Why? Because they're too focused on building a life that lights them up. They're too committed to their path to get stuck waiting around for someone to choose them. And ironically, that's what makes people notice. That self-respect, that forward motion, that clarity of direction. So if you're wondering where to start, how to be more attractive, more confident, more in control of your life, start here. Start by asking yourself, what am I doing today that my future self will thank me for? And then do something. Anything, read the book, go for the walk, make the call, set the boundary, take the risk. You don't need to do it all at once, but you do need to start. Because when you prioritize your own evolution, when you invest in becoming the kind of person you admire everything else starts to shift. That's when attraction stops being something you chase and starts being something you are asterisk. Let's talk about emotional availability and awareness, because if personal growth is the engine, emotional awareness is the steering wheel. You can be smart, successful, attractive on the outside, but if you're emotionally shut down or unaware of how you're showing up in your relationships, people will feel that disconnect. Attraction can get someone in the room, but it's your emotional availability that keeps them there. You see, emotional availability isn't just about being able to cry during a sad movie or saying, "I love you," when it feels right. It's much deeper than that. It's about being present, really present, with yourself and with others. It's about understanding what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and whether what you're feeling is truly coming from this moment or something that happened years ago. It's knowing your emotional habits, your triggers, your defense mechanisms. And most importantly, it's being willing to do something about them. Now here's the truth most people won't say out loud. Emotional unavailability isn't always obvious. It's not just cold or distant people who struggle with it. Sometimes it looks like being busy all the time, or being super independent to the point where you don't let anyone get close, or cracking jokes when things get serious, or avoiding hard conversations because they make you uncomfortable. Emotional unavailability wears a lot of masks, and the longer you wear one, the more disconnected you become from the very things that create real connection. When you're emotionally unavailable, even unintentionally, you're putting up a wall, and walls don't just keep pain out, they keep intimacy out too. So if you're wondering why relationships feel surface level, or why you keep attracting people who are emotionally distant themselves, you have to ask, what am I modeling? What am I emotionally available for? And it takes awareness to get honest with yourself about that. That's the second part of this emotional awareness. Because how can you be available to someone else if you don't even know what's going on inside you? Too many of us were never taught how to process emotions in a healthy way. We were taught to be tough, to get over it, to hide our feelings so we wouldn't be seen as weak. But emotions are information. They're signals. They're telling you something. And if you keep ignoring them, they'll keep showing up in your relationships as confusion, miscommunication, overreactions, or total shutdowns. So awareness is about slowing down enough to ask, what am I actually feeling right now? Where is this coming from? Am I responding to what's in front of me? Or am I projecting old pain into this moment? That kind of honesty changes everything. Because once you understand yourself, you can communicate clearly. You can take responsibility for your emotions instead of blaming or withdrawing. You can listen without becoming defensive. You can love without fear controlling every move you make. And let me be clear, this doesn't mean being perfect. This isn't about never getting triggered or always having the right thing to say. Emotional availability is not about being soft all the time. It's about being real asterisk. It's about being strong enough to sit with hard emotions and still stay present. It's about saying, "I'm not okay today," or "I need some time to think about this," or even "that hurt." That vulnerability is not weakness, it's power. It's magnetic because, let's face it, we're all craving connection, real connection, and we can't get there through performance. We get there through presence, through shared truth, through emotional courage. That's what creates chemistry that lasts. That's what builds relationships where you don't have to guess where you stand, where you can show up as you are and feel safe, seen, and supported. But it starts with you. You cannot be available for love, for trust, for intimacy if you're not available to yourself. And that means making space for your own feelings, being kind to yourself on the hard days, getting help if you need it, letting yourself feel without judging those feelings. When you do that, when you begin to hold space for your emotions, you become someone who can hold space for others too. And that asterisk, is the energy people are drawn to. Not because you have it all together, but because you're real, you're grounded, and you're emotionally awake. So, if you're serious about becoming more magnetic in your relationships, don't just work on your looks or your goals. Work on your emotional presence. Be the kind of person who knows how to sit with discomfort, who communicates with honesty, who listens with the intent to understand, not to respond. Be available not just with your time, but with your heart, because emotional availability isn't something you find in others. It's something you become asterisk. Let's talk about authentic communication, because if you're doing the inner work, if you're growing, becoming emotionally aware, learning who you are, then the next step is how you bring that in the world, how you express yourself, how you connect. Because no matter how confident or grounded you are on the inside, if you can't communicate with honesty and presence, the people around you won't be able to feel that. And what's the point of becoming magnetic if the signal you're sending out isn't clear or real? Authentic communication is about speaking from who you really are, not from who you think people want you to be. It's about using your voice in a way that reflects your values, your truth, and your boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable, because anyone can talk when it's easy. The question is, can you be real when it's hard? Can you stay true to yourself in the moments where it would be easier to stay silent or say what you think they want to hear? A lot of people mistake communication for talking, but the most powerful kind of communication is honest, intentional, and often simple. You don't need to use the right words to impress someone. You don't need to rehearse your personality to fit into a moment. You just need to show up as yourself. Say what you mean, own what you feel, ask for what you need, and let that be enough. And I get it, there's fear in that, because being honest makes you visible. It makes you vulnerable. When you say what's real, you risk being misunderstood, rejected, or judged. But here's the thing, when you speak from a place of truth, even if not everyone gets it, the right people will. The people who are meant for you, whether it's in friendships, relationships, or even at work, will feel your honesty and trust it. Because they're not looking for someone who's perfect. They're looking for someone who's real, someone they can rely on to show up with consistency, not perform on cue. And sometimes authentic communication isn't even about talking. It's about listening. It's about being present with someone else's truth without trying to fix it, change it, or make it about you. It's about holding space for someone else's vulnerability because you've done the work to hold space for your own. That's the kind of connection that builds trust. That's what makes people feel safe around you. And safety, emotional safety, is one of the most powerful forms of attraction there is. You don't need to win people over with charm or clever words. You need to be someone they feel they can be honest with. Someone who listens with their heart, who doesn't flinch at honesty, who doesn't sugarcoat the truth or avoid it altogether. That kind of presence is rare. That kind of presence is unforgettable. But none of this works if you're still trying to play a role. So much of our communication becomes performative because we think we have to earn connection. We say what we think they want to hear. We hold back how we really feel to avoid rocking the boat, or we stay quiet because somewhere deep down we're still afraid that if people saw the real us, they'd walk away. But here's the truth. You don't need to be liked by everyone. You need to be respected by the ones who see you. You need to be heard by the ones who matter, and that only happens when you stop filtering yourself so much. Stop editing your truth to keep the peace. Stop shrinking your voice to make space for other people's comfort. You are not too much. You are not too honest. You are not too real. And if someone can't handle that, they're not your person. You are not here to be palatable. You're here to be powerful. And that power lives in your voice. It lives in your ability to say, "This is how I feel. This is what I need. This is what I believe." And to say it calmly, clearly, without apology, not to dominate the conversation, but to invite depth into it. Not to win, but to connect. Authentic communication doesn't mean you always have the perfect response. It means you're willing to show up honestly even when your voice shakes, even when it's awkward, even when you're not sure how it'll land, because that's what real connection requires, truth, and truth doesn't always come dressed in confidence. Sometimes it comes in silence before the words. Sometimes it comes in tears or in saying, "I don't know yet," and that's okay. That's real. So if you want to be someone who draws people in, who holds attention, builds trust, and deepens connection, don't just speak louder. Speak clearer, speak honestly. Speak from the version of you that knows who they are, what they value, and what they're no longer willing to hide. Because when you speak from your truth, the right people will recognize it, and they'll lean in closer. Let's get into something that changes the game entirely when it comes to attraction: your boundaries and your standards. Because without these, everything else we've talked about starts to crumble. You can grow all you want, become emotionally aware, speak from your truth, but if you don't back that up with clear boundaries and high standards, you end up giving away your power. And the truth is, nothing repels the right people and attracts the wrong ones faster than a lack of boundaries. Now, I know this topic can feel heavy because we're often taught that boundaries are selfish, or that having high standards makes us difficult. But that's not the truth. Boundaries are not walls, they're gates. They don't shut people out. They teach people how to treat you. And standards, they aren't about being entitled. They're about being intentional. They're about knowing what you bring to the table and refusing to settle for someone who keeps asking you to lower your worth just so they can stay comfortable. Let me say this clearly. Having boundaries and standards is not about controlling other people. It's about leading yourself. It's about taking full responsibility for your peace, your time, your energy. You set boundaries not because you want to push people away, but because you care about staying aligned with your values. You raise your standards not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you finally realize that you've spent too much time accepting less than what you actually deserve. There's something powerful that happens when you decide to stop explaining why your boundaries matter. When you stop justifying your standards, when you stop shrinking yourself to fit someone else's level of readiness, you start sending a different message, not just to the people around you, but to yourself. And that message is, I know my value. And here's the thing, this isn't just about romantic relationships. This shows up in every area of your life. At work, with friends, with family, even in the way you treat yourself. Because if you're constantly saying yes to things that drain you, if you're tolerating disrespect, if you're staying in environments where you feel small, don't be surprised when your energy feels off. Don't be surprised when you feel disconnected from your power. Your boundaries are the container for your peace. Your standards are the blueprint for what you will and will not allow into your space. And it's hard, I know. It's hard to hold a boundary when you're afraid someone will leave. It's hard to maintain your standards when you've been told you're expecting too much. But let me ask you this, what has it cost you in the past when you ignored your gut, when you dropped your boundaries because you didn't want to upset someone, when you lowered your standards just to keep the peace or to feel chosen? That cost isn't just emotional. It's energetic. It chips away at your self-respect. Every time you abandon yourself to keep someone else comfortable, you teach yourself that their comfort matters more than your truth. And that is not love. That is not connection. That is self-sacrifice masquerading as compatibility. You have to be willing to disappoint other people in order to not disappoint yourself. You have to be okay with being misunderstood. You have to be okay with walking away from things that don't feel right, even if you're scared of what that means. Because what's on the other side of that fear is self-respect. And when you respect yourself, people feel it. You start attracting situations that mirror that respect. You stop begging for clarity and start becoming it. You stop wondering if someone's going to choose you and start realizing you already did. You chose yourself. People who don't have boundaries end up resentful. People who don't have standards end up exhausted. And none of that creates attraction. It creates friction, confusion, disconnection. So if you want to be someone who draws in the kind of energy that's real, grounded, and reciprocal, you have to create the space for it. And that space gets created through your limits, through what you're no longer available for, through what you're willing to walk away from, even if it stings in the moment. This is not about being cold. It's about being clear. It's about recognizing that your peace is too expensive to bargain with, that your presence is a privilege, not a consolation prize, that your love, your energy, your time, those are not things you give away to whoever shows up. They are earned, they are protected. And when you live from that place, not only do you feel more grounded, but you become undeniably more attractive because people are drawn to clarity, to strength, to someone who knows their worth and won't compromise it for temporary attention, because nothing is more magnetic than someone who knows exactly what they're no longer willing to tolerate. Attraction isn't about being perfect, it's about being whole. When you embrace your self-worth, grow consistently, stay emotionally open, speak authentically, and uphold your standards, you become naturally magnetic. Not to everyone, but to the right ones. Start today. Choose one area where you can show up more powerfully for yourself. Say this out loud: I am worthy of deep love, high standards, and meaningful connection. Keep going. When you lead with self-worth, the world begins to mirror it back to you.